What's going on, team? Proof here, and welcome to a new video for Duel Masters Plays. And this video is going to be going over the first batch of cards that we've got for the next set coming out, which is called Return of Legends. And we don't have any info on the total set size or when the release date is for it, but on the Duel Masters Plays, not wiki, but on their Twitter page, they've been doing like a card of the day reveal where they've gone over what the new releases are. So we've been accumulating them on the Duel Masters Discord, and they've been put onto the Duel Masters Plays wiki. And I'm kind of just going through the ones that have been revealed so far and kind of giving my initial thoughts and impressions on it. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and hop into it. So we actually have the order of the cards of the day. So I'm just kind of just going from the very first one that came out through the latest one. And we have 14 cards today, or 13 or 14 cards to go through today. So let's go ahead and hop into it. So the first card we have is Magma Dragon Geyser, which is the first super rare that came out. And he's a 6 mana, 5,000 power plus creature. And he says, when this creature attacks, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a dragon, put it into the battle zone, so directly into play. If it's not, put it into your graveyard. And while battling, this creature gets plus 1,000 power. So right off the bat, this gave us a big idea that the general focus, or one of the big overarching focuses of the set, was going to be dragons. And if you're a big fan of dragons, I'm kind of a fan of dragons, not a huge super fan of dragons, but if you are a big fan of dragons, this is going to be the set for you to come into the game with. And kind of gives you the idea that you need to have a big proportion of dragons to make this thing work, because when it attacks, reveal top card, put into the battle zone, which still you get the free cost benefit from it without having like to draw it and play it. So it's like on attack, draw a card, immediately play it for free, so you get that nice +1 and the tempo for it. And helps plays around your opponent having potential removal shield triggers, most likely, which is a big benefit. However, if you whiff on it, you're gonna have to put it directly to the graveyard. So if it's a big spell you wanted to keep in hand, or something you wanted to see for removal, you lose it. If it's not a dragon, or if it's like another support card, you're gonna lose it. So you have to keep that in mind if you're playing with a card like Geyser to get the most benefit out of it. But I would imagine that a lot of the cards upcoming in the set, which you're going to see in this video here as well, is going to support the theme of having a lot of dragons in your deck to use it. And the plus 1,000 power when attacking is pretty helpful for trading sometimes. Next up, we have one of my personal favorite cards from the OG game. We have Crazed Valkyrie the Drastic, which is an evolution creature for initiates. It's a double breaker, and when this creature enters the battle zone, tap up to 2 of your opponent's creatures. So being 6 mana and 7,500 power is a very good stat line. On average, a lot of the big drops in the game right now average at 7,000 power or less. So having Crazed Valkyrie be 75, or having an additional 500 on top of that, allows it to freely attack into those creatures and win the battle without having to lose it. And for those that don't remember or aren't aware, evolution creatures, you need to have the base units. You need to have another initiate on the board, which thankfully initiates have 2 very good pieces of that in Sarius and Magris. Sarius is a blocker that comes down really early, and Magris is 4 mana, 3,000, lets you draw a card, so you get to replace it and get the added threat of being able to turn into Crazed Valkyrie at some point in the future. But having those initiates and being able to tap down your opponent's creature to give you that nice benefit of being able to be more kind of passive, but be able to control the board better, to have a better footing before you go for your opponent's shields and start trying to end the game there. So I'm definitely going to be playing some Crazed Valkyrie when it comes out. I actually have 4 somewhere in this house because I did bring up all my old stuff when I moved up a few years ago. So somewhere I have 4 Crazed Valkyrie just chilling, waiting. And now that I'm being able to play it in Duel Masters Play, so I'm really excited for that. Next up, we have Stalup the Life Quencher. He is a demon command, 6 mana, 6,000 power, double breaker. And then when destroyed, destroy all creatures, no matter yours or your opponent's. So Stalup here is like a sealed up version of Balam, which is 8 mana triple breaker now. It got buffed up in the game, and on entry, Balam destroys all darkness creatures. So being a demon command has potential threat added to become Balam in the future, which is a pretty big deal. And if your opponent is playing a deck that likes to remove your opponent's creatures, and by destroying them, you can set them back by having Stalup on board and having them remove it and destroy all the creatures, which lets you have next turn initiative to be able to start putting more creatures back on the board. So then you can potentially lead up to Balam again, keep doing that over and over again. Unfortunately, Stalup isn't effective against bounce strategies, which being 6 mana lets it be hit by Spiral Slider, and it also, all other forms of bounce currently in the game can remove Stalup. So if you're playing against water-based decks, likely you're not going to be able to get Stalup off, and it also doesn't work against being removed by things like Natural Snare as well for nature cards. So if you're playing it, it's probably going to be like a 2-of type of thing, just as like a big bomb that you could play that might be useful against some of the control strategies out there. And if he sticks around, you can turn him into Balam, or you can also do some self-removal as well, because at the current moment, there's a very prominent other demon command in Death Mori that can remove your own Stalup for you if your opponent has a big threat in the board that you need to be able to deal with. So as of right now, it has some niche use and it could see some play, but we'll see what the rest of the cards have in store once they come out. Next up, we got Big Boy King Tsunami, triple breaker, and when he enters the battle zone, return all other creatures to the opponent's hand. So kind of like what I was alluding to with Stalup, in that it is unaffected by bounce effects. If you play King Tsunami and your opponent has a Stalup on the board, you can wipe it back and not have to worry about it until the next turn. And then King Tsunami being a triple breaker as well is a big threat on an opponent. Unfortunately, he costs 12 mana, which is kind of hard to get to in the regular course of the game, because unless you're playing some type of massive mana acceleration, you can't get it down early enough to where when it finally does come down, it may not be as useful as it could be, because you might be on the verge of losing, or your opponent may have discarded it, so you can't really hold it in hand against general control strategies that like to discard. So it's not going to find much use unless they release other cards that support getting it down earlier, unless you want to fill your deck up with mana acceleration, which has its pros and cons as well. And we have Terra Dragon Geo Bree, which isn't a card that wasn't used or wasn't released in the original TCG, but it was played in the Japanese game. So this is my first foray into using it, so I'm really excited to see what this card is going to be all about once it releases. But what he says is, when this creature enters the battle zone, put one of your opponent's creatures that has the lowest power into its owner's mana zone. If there's more than one, randomly choose one from among them. So what's important here is that it only removes your opponent's creatures, and it's the lowest ones among them. So if you time it up well, you can remove probably one of your opponent's big blockers, because if your opponent is playing something with blockers, you can get it out the way and not have to deal with it. And it can also remove one of your opponent's bigger creatures as well. So for example, if your opponent is playing Alcadius, which cannot be removed by spells once it comes down, generally speaking, if it's the lone creature on your opponent's board and you play Geo Bree, your opponent has to put Alcadius into the mana zone, because it is technically the lowest power on your opponent's board because it's by itself. So it's a nice way to get rid of something that's bigger than what you could probably deal with in a normal course of the game. Just because if you time it up with Geo Bree coming down, you can just get it out the way. And it can be played earlier, like all dragons can, by having Cocolupia on your field, which reduces the cost by 2. So you can go like turn 3 Cocolupia, turn 4 Geo Bree, and if your opponent plays something on turn 4 that's bigger than what Lupia can handle, or something just big in general, you can just sweep it off the board and have Geo Bree be the lone threat and protect your Cocolupia for the turn. So I think it has potential. I'm really excited to try it out. I'm really excited to play it. Being a VR makes it kind of pricey to have to get in the crafting system, but we'll make it happen. And a new card, not a new card, but the next card is something I'm really excited to see coming back into the game so soon, is Charger spells. The first one they gave us is Eureka Charger. So it's draw a card and it has Charger. And what Charger says is that after you cast the card, instead of going to the graveyard, it goes to the mana zone. So it can be used for mana in the current turn or the next turn. So once you play this for 4 mana, it goes to the mana zone, you now have 5 mana. And then the next turn you can go up to 6 mana, which is important for water decks because of popular curve that you might be seeing is turn 3 Aqua Hocus, which lets you draw a card. Turn 4 Eureka Charger, which draws a card and goes to the mana zone. And then turn 5, you can play Crystal Lancer, which evolves on top of your Crystal, or on top of your Aqua Hocus, and just start beating your opponent down with Crystal Lancer. So all all 5 civilizations are likely going to have charger spells come out this set, and I'm going to review them once they come up. But outside, it's a nice way to have faster strategies that don't revolve having nature in your deck, which is the primary, or at least in set 1, was the primary mana acceleration civilization. So if you wanted to play something that required something big to be played faster, you would have to throw in enough nature cards to make it happen. But once chargers come out, you can not have to do that and put some of your spells into action through, or get some of your mana going through the charger spells, which I'm excited for. And next up, we have Magma Dragon Melgars, which is just a 4-mana, 4,000 vanilla dragon. But the reason why, as I alluded to with Geo Bree, is that dragons can have their cost reduced by Cocolupia. And just being 4-mana, 4,000 is a good body, which means that when, not if, when dragon evolution creatures start to come out, Melgars here is probably going to be a very solid base to use, being a very safe 4-mana option to go into. 4 mana is a good buy to have early on. It can trade if you need it to, or it can slow down some of your opponent's aggressive options, because 4,000 power is higher than their I can't talk. It's higher than their average power of creature. So if they attack with something and Melgar's on the board, it's likely to be able to trade into it effectively. So it's going to be an important card to have for future evolution strategies. Here we have Winnable the Hypnotic, which is a 5-mana guardian evolution creature, 8,500 power, which is a good body to have against creatures that aren't Crazed Valkyrie. So it can take out like Crystal Lancer or Fighter Dual Fang, which is something that's too big for Crazed Valkyrie to handle. And then in addition to that, it says when your opponent uses shield trigger, put the top card of your deck into the shield zone. So this is pretty important for most strategies, because a lot of the basis of protecting yourself is coming through shield triggers, which, if you aren't familiar with the game, is that when your opponent breaks a shield on their turn, if it's a shield trigger, that instead of going to your hand, you can play the card for free. So a lot of aggressive strategies like to use shield triggers to defend themselves against opposing aggressive strategies. And if you have Winnable here and your opponent plays those shield triggers against an aggressive deck, it adds additional shields to your side of the board, which means your opponent can't win as fast while you still have Winnable potentially on the field to keep that chain going. It also helps against control strategies as well. Probably not as much, because control strategies don't rely on winning fast, and it has Bomedius to help destroy shields, so you don't get the benefit from the additional shields. But it could be handy to help protect yourself against some control strategies as well out there. So I'm excited to see what it's going to do. Guardians don't have the greatest utility in evolution baits, unlike the initiates for Crazed Valkyrie. So we'll see if they release some additional guardians to help support Winnable here and going into the future, into the next set. Next up, we have Terra Dragon Regarian, 5-mana, 4,000 power plus. It's a double breaker, which is one of the only early double breaker dragons at the current moment, and has power attacker plus 3,000. So it can attack for up to 7,000, which is pretty good against, like I mentioned before, Crazed Valkyrie, some of the on average 7,000 power things, just help you trade into them if they become too dangerous. It also helps you progress from Cocolupia into a threatening dragon, which you might be able to use for double breaking and being aggressive on your turn. And as I alluded to again with Melgars, it might be good to have it for potential evolution bait as well, especially if the evolution bait requires Earth Dragons. Regarian here is going to be a very good base to go off of, because it's a solid body, it's hard to remove, and it's easy for it to upscale trade into something else. And here we have Necro Dragon Galand, which is double breaker, and then when it battles, after the battle, destroy this creature. So 4 mana, so it's easy to go like Cocolupia into Galand plus Melgars, or Galand plus another Galand, to have 2 early double breakers on the board. However, if your opponent is playing something with small creatures, they can easily trade into your tap down Galand and remove it. So you might just get the benefit of having like 1 double break, and then it's gone for the rest of the game. So another very good cheap dragon bait for the future, in case you need it for, say, just general dragon bait or zombie dragon bait. easy go-to here to go for Galan and then fill out the rest of the deck for what your evolution might need. So I'm excited to try it out. I can see this being used in aggressive strategies with the aforementioned Cocolupia, just because that dream curve of going turn 3 Cocolupia and a turn 4 double Galan is slim, but if you get that off, it's going to be super powerful turn on your board going into the future. So I'm looking forward to keep trying it out because I do enjoy the dragons to enough degree to try them out. And here we have another card that wasn't in the original TCG, but there was a version of this, maybe not exactly like this, in the Japanese game. We have Call of Dragons, which says 3 mana spell, put the top card of your deck into your mana zone. If that card is a dragon, put another card from the top of your deck into your mana zone. So you can instantly go from play this on turn 3 and go to 5 mana, which sets you up very well to be able to start playing some of your bigger cards, not just dragons, but which is you primarily use it for dragons, but you can very easily go this into say Geo Bree, on which you go to 6 mana without needing to have Cocolupia on the board. So being able, because a lot of dragons are very expensive, so to be able to have that come down sooner, which is why Cocolupia is such an important piece for that, just be able to have the ability to go bigger dragons sooner before your opponent can deal with them, puts you in such a good footing that you start to steamroll the advantage that way. And Call of Dragons here is another way to be able to do that for you without having to rely on Cocolupia. However, since it requires to have a big proportion of dragons, you need to fill it out with so many dragons that is to be able to make this not be such a bad bronze arm tribe that you might dilute your deck too much. So you need to find that good ratio, which I don't have the math on that right now, but I can see this being such a huge boon to have as long as you can hit the double land, or not land drop, hit the double mana drop on turn 3 with it. And next up we have Bolshak Lupia, which is another card we didn't have in the TCG, but is being gifted to us into DMP. And it says it's a 4 mana 2000 Firebird. When this card enters the battle zone, you may search your deck for a creature named Bolshak, reveal one and add it to your hand, and then shuffle your deck. So why this is important is that even though, well, let me back up. Bolshak is a very iconic card in the history of Duel Masters. Even though the first version we got in set 1 wasn't very good, it got further iterations as time went on. And if my thinking is that they're going to probably release another version of that into the game that kind of fits within the power level of what they're going for here. Granted, I don't know which those could be because I don't have as much of a knowledge of post-English TCG, but I'm excited to see what ones they might bring back if it's revealed. But if they don't, Bolshak Lupia's card ability says search out a card named Bolshak, which includes Bolshak Lupia. So if you play one on when you have 4 mana, you can search out another Bolshak Lupia, and it replaces itself in hand. It thins your deck out, and it increases your board presence for selective search, which is very good because search got changed in Duel Masters plays to give you 3 random options that aren't duplicated. So being able to have, say, 1 or 2 other cards with Bolshak in their name in your deck helps you guarantee you're going to get the search target that you're looking for from Bolshak Lupia. So it's something to keep in mind as you're building up your deck once the set is all fleshed out, to see how many cards with Bolshak in their name you want to include to help enable Bolshak Lupia. And if they have another powerful iteration of Bolshak to come down, you have a 4 mana option to be able to get that to your hand, which is very, very good because 4 mana is cheap. 2000 power is decent enough to at least trade into things and then be able to get your big search target or another one to help keep that chain going. So I think it's a good card. I think it's going to see some play once things flesh out. And last but not least, we have Kirstrom Lair Delver. It's kind of hard to say for me sometimes. But he's a 5 mana, 1000 power Dragonoid. When destroyed, you may put a dragon from your hand into the battle zone. So this card here, there's a lot of ways for you to be able to kill off one of your 1000 power things. You have Magma Rex, which is a shield trigger creature which nukes all 1000 power things. You have Burst Shot, which is a 6 mana spell which destroys all 2000 or less power things. There's also Death Warrior, which I talked about previously, that can nuke one of your own creatures. destroy one of your opponent chooses one of their own creatures and destroys it. There's a lot of ways you can manipulate Kirstrom here to help put a dragon from your hand into the battle zone. And you can just kind of attack with it, and you can either have a dragon in your hand, or you can bluff having a dragon in your hand and your opponent may not be able to ready to deal with it. And when you put a card from your hand into the battle zone, if it has an ability that triggers once it enters the battle zone, it'll still go off through Kirstrom. So something to keep in mind for things like, say, Geo Bree. Once it comes down, if your opponent has something that's removable, like a big threat that you're able to remove through Geo Bree, your opponent can enable that themselves by blocking it, or you can just remove Kirstrom somehow through the ways I talked about, and then bring down Geo Bree. So it could be a big threat to have, and it's going to be something that's going to be exciting to see play out over time, because 5 mana is kind of expensive, but it also can be an anti-control tool if your opponent hasn't discarded your hand or something like that, that you can just present Kirstrom here to have to deal with it, and then deal with the dragon backup after that. So that's all the cards up through today that they've released for set 2. I'm really excited. There is going to be a huge dragon focus, which hopefully is going to play out well to be able to change up the meta, because the meta right now is a lot of control decks and a lot of safe options. So it's going to be interesting to see how these cards can be incorporated to help shake things up. And I see a lot of potential here for said shake up to happen. So it's going to be really fun to see how things play out once we get more and more of the information, and see how maybe there's going to be some more synergies that come out in the future as well. But yeah, that'll do it for me. I hope you enjoyed. I want to do these weekly, like once a week, unless releases start coming out fast and furious where it's like 2 and 3 cards a day. Then I don't want to wait a week. I might chop it up, but we'll see. We'll play it by ear. But hope you enjoyed this. If you haven't played Duel Masters yet, hope this might intrigue you to come at least check it out. If you're an old head like me, a lot of these cards are going to seem familiar, which hopefully you might see something that might that you see that might bring you into playing Duel Masters plays, and come join me as well. So that'll do it for me. I hope you enjoy, and until the next one, peace. Be easy.